Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Intuitive Catalyst podcast. I'm Leilani, your host, and today we are joined with the deeply divine Xandrine Ayla. Xandrine is a coach, mentor, and guide for high-achieving women who are looking to shift from hustle and struggle into embodied ease and flow by reconnecting with their bodies, pleasure, and worth. As a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, energy healer, and yoga teacher, Xandrine blends ancient practices with modern mindset techniques. Her holistic approach has supported women from around the world to reclaim their radiance and align with their highest timeline. Xandrine is a best-selling author of The Keys to Authenticity alongside Jack Canfield and the host of the Magnetic Self podcast. And when I think of Xandrine, I am just filled with this energy of self-love, self-acceptance. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. She has this beautiful way of merging our deeply divine self with this acceptance and love for our humanness. And we really tackle this kind of big concept, the sacred feminine rage. We talk about it in a way that helps to kind of bridge the gap between our humanness and our spiritual selves. It is a really important episode, especially for women. I feel like so many women are going to connect with the way that Xandrine approaches this work, and I can't wait to share it with you at this time. So without further ado, I welcome to the podcast, Xandrine Ayla. Xandrine, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I am so excited and I just feel, I've been having a good day so far, so I'm feeling good.
We just spent over an hour plus catching up. we're
Or like, I don't know, 75 minutes ago, but we just got on and chatted and had the best conversation, and here we are continuing.
Here we are. Here we are. So we're like, we should probably start recording now. So Xandrine, I'm going to start with a question that I ask all of my guests. So who are you? What is your big work in the world? And how do you source from your intuition to do your work?
Okay, so I am Xandrine. More than anything else, I am a mama. I'm a devoted mama to a 12-year-old beautiful preteen angel, who's like a little elder. Yeah. But other than that, my work in the world, I am a feminine embodiment guide and coach, and my work is supporting high achieving women, women who are like go-getters and have a lot of big work to do in this world. And I help them shift from being in the hustle, struggle state and move more into this embodied ease and flow by connecting them to their bodies, their sense of pleasure, and their worth. And yeah, it's definitely something that's very much related to my own journey and how that has a way of reigniting their inner radiance and magnetism and their feminine energy so that they can do less and attract more. So this is the big work that I've been doing in this world. I love what I do and I've been doing it. My work has evolved quite a bit since getting into this in 2016. 2016 to 2018 were like really my starting years. So yeah, my work has definitely evolved since then, from self-love to manifestation, and now bringing in this piece of feminine embodiment. And I love that you brought about intuition, because intuition is a big part of how I am able to do my work. And your question is, how do I source my intuition? Is that right?
Yeah. How do you source from your intuition to do your work? Yeah.
Yes. And so for me, it's about having my embodiment practices. And so and that for me is in the morning. I will have a solid morning routine. And for me, that sets me up for a great day. That is the time that I tune in. I mean, I've been on the road recently, so that hasn't been like fully set in the way that I know it can be. But for the most part, I will wake up before the sun rises. And I love that time because it's really quiet. I feel so connected to my guides. And in those hours, I will have my yoga practice, I will have my meditation practice, my breath work, my time to journal, to envision. It varies actually from day to day. And again, it's more of like an intuitive feel as to, oh, what do I want to do today to connect? But I think that that is the guiding force that I have an intention to connect to not just myself, but something bigger outside of me, within me, but of course also outside of me, which are my spirit guides, my healthy ancestors, archangels, ascended masters, just Father God and Mother Earth and everything in between. And it's just been a beautiful practice of honing that connection, which is an ever evolving journey. So, yeah. I have to say though, so right now I live in an island in the southwestern tip of the Philippines. I live in El Nido, Palawan, and I do feel like I'm able to really hone my intuition out there even further just because there's less interference. And I say that because it's such a stark difference from living in LA, which is where I was for like 13, 14 years. And there's just a lot of things in the city that can stimulate you or like pull you out of your center. And so I found that once I had more of this space and this connection with nature, that my intuitive abilities were way more online than usual. And I mean, it's no surprise. Like I'll have times where I'm just out in the ocean, there's nobody there. Like I have beaches to myself. I'm just
Mm.
communing with spirit and just praying to the mother ocean and just allowing downloads and messages to come through. So that's been a
Mm.
beautiful practice for me.
I feel like this is a great segue actually into the next question, which is like, tell us about your healing journey, your spiritual awakening. Like, how did you come into being in connection with your ancestors, your mother ocean, mother Gaia? Like, what was the process like for you, for those who are listening?
Mm, wow. Well, I feel like I was already very spiritual from a young age. My mom was spiritual. I mean, we had a religious background. I grew up Catholic and I was born and raised in the Philippines. I did have times living in the US from a young age, so we would go back and forth. And so I think from my mom's influence, I had spiritual awakenings and parts of this healing that were already occurring at a young age. Like I remember she would like first of all, like she would go to these seminars and they would like look at spoons and will for the spoon to bend just by looking at it. And then also like she would use crystals and put them in my third eye and put them in my heart and just allow me to just breathe and be still at 7 or 8. So I feel like I had glimpses of that at a young age. And I think what really catapulted me into my healing journey was that I had a crazy, tumultuous Saturn's return. At the age of 28, or right before my 28th birthday, basically, it felt like I got the rug pulled from underneath me, and my life just got turned upside down. I mean, I'm talking like I got laid off from my job, and I was working in Singapore then. So then I was evicted from the country, and I had a friend who betrayed me, and I had a boyfriend who cheated on me, and my computer crashed, and my iPod, back in the day we had iPods, or was it iPod? What do you call
Yeah,
those?
we had the iPod. Yeah.
I'm like, am I getting the right term? That device where you listen to music before we had smartphones, that had 10,000 songs that crashed. So all these things were happening all at the same time, pretty much. And I was just like, holy shit. And what now? And there was a lot of grief, a lot of confusion, a lot of sadness. And I, just being the warrioress that I am, was like, yeah, we're going to keep going and we're going to figure out what's aligned. And I'm going to go on like what felt like a journey to find the true me. The version of me that was outside of what people expected. Because I feel like there was a lot of people pleasing back in the day. And that's been a big part of my journey, is to really find my true and authentic self. And so that led me into, first of all, learning how to be a yoga teacher. I was like, I could teach, but I definitely feel that I want to learn more about yoga and yoga philosophy. And that blew my mind, because it's like, what? This is a whole way of life that feels like it's so resonant. And it's like coming home to these teachings that made so much sense. And so it was a path for me to really fulfill, and I did, and it brought me to different parts of the world. And actually, yoga is what brought me to LA. So 2009, I moved. Well, I wasn't really planning to move here. I came here to study with a specific teacher, and basically that just continued to evolve. And I since then have really had this voracious appetite for learning different modalities, different healing methods, just different ways to evolve and develop as a person and to self realize. So I would say if there was one point that really catapulted me into that, it was that time. And it's still an ever evolving journey that I'm still on. How many years later? You do the math.
I Well, my question to you, and thank you for sharing all of that so vulnerably. My question is, for those who are in it, because I know there are a lot of people who are kind of on the precipice of their own awakening, and their life is kind of crumbling around them, right? I can't remember who said this quote, but like there's a quote out there that's like, in order to move into the life that's meant for you, you have to surrender the life that you've been living, right? Like you have to let go of the version of you that's been, which means that a lot of times the universe will create circumstances to kind of spit you out of that life, right? And so that portal that you're navigating when you're there, you're in the chaos, you're like, oh my gosh, everything that I know, what I've known to be true about my life and who I am, is crumbling around me. How did you, or how would you, what would you tell these women? Because you do support a lot of women. What would you tell these women when they are navigating that choice about where do I go next? Who do I become? Like what that moment for you, that choice point. Can you describe to us like what was that like, and how did you navigate that yourself, so that we can kind of have some, maybe the listeners need a little bit of like understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah, so I'll bring it back to something that I mentioned earlier, where before in my journey, there was a lot of people pleasing. There was a lot of, oh, let me just do something that would make my family happy, or that, people expected me to do. And I realized that I had to live for nobody else but myself. And as I say that, like people could be like, oh, that's so selfish. But then actually, no, that's self-loving. And so for me, that was the guiding factor. Like, how can I come back to the true me, the most authentic version of me? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And so I was like, okay, well, let me follow the breadcrumbs and to be on a journey to get to know the real me. And I started with what was present in my life that was bringing me joy and a lot of healing. It was yoga. And I remember I told you the rug pretty much got pulled from underneath me. And I was navigating all this grief and this sadness. And yoga was a means for me to direct all that energy and to transmute it. And I started to feel better. So I was like, okay, let me follow that.
Mhm.
So I think for those who are just right at the cusp and they're trying to navigate, like, okay, what's next? It's giving yourself that time and space to tune in to a simple question like, what feels good for me to do right now? And then I don't think that it's realistic to have like this whole laid out game plan. Hardly that it hardly ever happens. I feel like it's just tuning in to what's present and then allowing yourself the time and space to explore that. And I believe that from that, the next steps will unfold. And then the next steps. And it's like, before I know it, I'm in LA. Before I know it, I meet the person that I have the soul contract with that I meant to bring this child out into the world in 2012. Which they were like, oh, it's the end of the world. And actually, apparently, it was just like a beginning of a whole new chapter for me. So it's about coming back to what's true and real for you. And I know like that can be confusing if you're not really as connected and you haven't given yourself the time and space to hone that connection. But start there. What feels good? Can I allow myself to do that? Let's see what comes up after that. So you're just following what feels good. And one thing that's coming through is to trust yourself in the process.
Mhm. Which is not an easy thing, especially for women in our world. We've been conditioned out of sourcing from the wisdom of our bodies, right? Like we've been conditioned out of feeling our bodies to survive. And, there's so much trauma that our bodies as women carry from generations prior and from the world that we are navigating or our own personal trauma that we've navigated in this life. And so I think it's really potent and important to ask ourselves, okay, what does feel good? And to also, what I'm also hearing about this, and as these messages are coming through for me as well, is like letting go of people pleasing, like making decisions that run counter to who we've been up until this moment, sometimes don't feel good. I mean, right? Like, how many times are we presented with a choice point, a moment where we are going to decide who we're going to be. And it feels terrifying to tell somebody no, right? Like it might not feel good in the sense of like, okay, I have like, there's a pit in my stomach. This feels really uncomfortable. Sometimes our nervous systems have to catch up,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. So as I'm saying that, like, what's coming up for you?
Two things. First off, I want to highlight how you have to feel. So, feeling is from the body. And a lot of us, as you mentioned, we're conditioned to move away from that and be so much more in the head, and we're living from the neck up. And as a result, you're overanalyzing. Like, you can't really understand what feels good from the mental space. You have to get out of your head and into your body to feel that. And then the second piece was like to be able to do something completely different. What I see it as a pattern interrupt.
Mm.
And if you want something different than what you've been experiencing, you have to be willing to do things that you haven't done before. And I know that's easier said than done because it's like, oh, that can be scary. And I don't know what that's going to,
Mhm.
turn out to be like.
Mhm.
And I think this is where you have these practices that will allow you to self-source safety from within, where you feel like, okay, I'm going to hold myself through this. Because I can't tell you, since that Saturn's return, I mean, that was just the beginning. I've had many pop-up quizzes and crazy other tumultuous times, being a single mom, and then moving, and then the pandemic, and then like getting out of LA and now living in this island and navigating co-parenting. So there's been so many times where I've had to really learn how to hold myself through these things. And I think one of the pieces that I want to share is that there is this desire for women to be held, right? Like we can have that. And what I want to share here is that can we also learn how to hold ourselves and let that be just the cherry on top when we receive it from another person? Because if not, then I have this void. And what can happen is I'm like desperately needing that from another person. And like, I want a man to come in here and I need him to make me feel safe. I need him to fulfill me sexually. I need him to hold me financially, emotionally, and all the things. And it's like, it's a lot to put on another person. And
Mhm.
I think that healthy relationships come when there's two people who are doing their work on their own individually, and then they're able to play with each other in that dance because it feels more whole and supportive in that collaboration. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think about the sometimes like really, I don't know if it's just a conditioning or what, but a lot of times when we are not feeling whole within ourselves, it's so natural for us to seek that externally, especially if that's not something that our caregivers early in life were able to instill within us, right? Of like, okay, can I self-soothe? Do I actually have like enough wisdom within myself to make a decision? Do I actually have permission to feel my feelings and to let my experience be what it is without needing it to be perfect or whatever? Like, there's so many times where we don't have that care early on. And I'm not just blaming my parents or whatever, but a lot of times we're not really taught how to source within ourselves, right? For our needs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think no man, woman is an island, right? Like we are needing support. And so for me, it's like to learn how to
Mhm.
self-soothe came from saying yes to containers, programs, mentors, coaches that guided me. And then I can find my own process and hone
Right.
that. But I can't say that like I just figured it out in myself. Like there is
Mhm.
a certain amount of figuring it out on my own, but then also being guided and supported. So I think what I want to highlight is that let's say yes to people who can support us in the challenging times that we're in. Like it doesn't have to be in a professional setting, but like call a friend or call somebody that you know who can hold space for you. Because it's
Mhm.
also so easy to just isolate. I know I'm speaking from my experience where it was such a growth edge for me to
Mhm.
call somebody because I'm the type of person who loves holding space for other people. Like you got
Mhm.
something going on, I'm here for you. Like I can just like listen to somebody for hours. But then for me, like to be able to like if I'm going through something, I was having a hard time like, just asking a friend like, "Hey, do
Mhm.
you have a minute? Can you just be here for me?" And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. What's that about?" So it's like being able to ask for what you need. And I know again, that's like a growth edge, but on the other side of that is more of this ease that we're desiring. So why wouldn't we give ourselves that? It's like
Mhm.
self-sabotage, and you're like in this cycle, but you know that it's not serving you. So why not try something else and see how
Mm.
that feels?
It's so interesting because romantic love has been a place where I like just in recent years. So I would say like earlier in life, I would kind of like try to self-soothe, kind of like not really let my partner into my experience and just kind of try to manage it myself because my own feelings of unworthiness or whatever were just kind of like coloring my experience or whatever. And then recent years, I'm like, I kind of have allowed myself to let my partners in and let myself be vulnerable, transparent. But I kind of swung in the other direction where I was kind of it became a little more codependent, right? Where it's like, oh, well, now I can be in partnership and I can let somebody in and allow them to, make me feel better or whatever. And just recently I was really proud of myself because it's like, the pendulum always will level out, right? Like you swing from one direction to the other, and then it tends to, if you continue to work through it, it's like it tends to. And so I was having a just like a conflict with my partner, and my nervous system got really kind of dysregulated. And instead of just seeking that like regulation in partnership, I sat with it for a bit with her. I was letting her know what was going on for me. And then eventually I was like, I think I need to go self-regulate and I'll be back. Like I'm not ejecting. I feel like I need to go self-regulate and then come back. And I went and I have like tons of plants in my living room. And I just like held one of my like trees and I was just like crying and like the leaves were like brushing against my face. And I was just like in communion really with like Mother Earth, Gaia. I was like just allow, and then I just like let myself just be dysregulated and just like cry and just be with myself and let the plant kind of like hold me. And then, I came back and I was able to like have a conversation and like be in like a really healthy, more of like a healthy conversation. And I don't know why this is coming up for me, perhaps because I think that we tend to think that there's only like one way to be in right relationship with other people, other humans, especially as those of us who are navigating a very spiritual existence on this planet. And I think we get to like trust our humanness, allow ourselves to be human, allow ourselves to like become dysregulated, allow ourselves to be in connection during dysregulation, allow ourselves to self-soothe when we are feeling called to do so. And it's just such a dynamic experience being human and being spiritual all at once. I don't know if there's anything.
Absolutely is. I really feel like it's a dance,
Hmm.
balance, and for me, it's like, how can I be in this world but not of it, and
Hmm.
not be so sucked into the illusion and the ways of the matrix, and like still have this way of operating within it in a stealthy. Sometimes I'm thinking like, ooh, I can just be stealthy and ninja and not have to like comply and obey, because I'm just like, I call myself a sacred rebel. And because I'm guided by my intuition. And that might not be what the government wants me to do. That might not be what other people or my parents or my family, my culture want me to do. And it's been a beautiful, yeah, journey of just being like, I can be grounded in my truth and live it, because that's what allows me to be free and liberated. And
Mm.
speaking of that, like, freedom is one of my top values.
Mm.
So in this lifetime, it's like, how can I live in such a way where I'm free? And my gosh, opening up to that question, it's like the universe is like, oh, you want to know, huh? Okay, here. And it just gives me all sorts of challenges that I have to say I'm grateful for. I'm blessed to have these challenges because if it weren't for those challenges, then I wouldn't have something to reflect back to me, like how I can really find that sense of freedom and expression within if it weren't for that. So, yeah, it's a journey.
It's interesting because as you're talking about being a sacred rebel and almost like embodying freedom as just a sacred way of being, I'm reminded of one of the big topics that we wanted to discuss today, which is like sacred rage.
Right.
And when I think about like freedom, like the sacred nature of freedom, I feel like sacred rage is such like they interact. Like you can't have freedom without rage, right? Like there's something there. So I'm curious, like in your work with sacred rage, and I know that that's something that you've been working a lot with, like what is the connection? Why does it matter? How do we begin to honor our sacred rage? Like what comes up for you as we think about these topics kind of flowing together?
So, we were just talking about liberation and what's the connection of that to sacred rage. And so, when we're doing sacred rage practices, we're embodying the anger, the grief. It could be anything that was suppressed, that was like, let's shove that under the rug because society made that wrong, right? A lot of aspects of the dark feminine were to be feared, or they were like, oh, she's just crazy. She's becoming like a lunatic and just gaslit us, when these are aspects that are within us that still need time and space for it to be expressed. And so the connection of that and sacred and liberation is that when we're able to have a healthy relationship with these emotions, including anger, and express it in a way that's not necessarily directed at a person, but rather like within a safe space where we could just let it rip and actually feel the pleasure of being in that energy, then we're not held in limitation of these dense, heavy emotions, stuck trauma within our bodies that have been passed down from generations to generation, that actually live in our DNA. We have the ability to actually look at it and deal with it in a productive way so that it's not limiting us, but rather it's moving us towards the liberation that we desire. So that is the value of it.
Why does it matter? Like what is the most important reason that women in this dimension and this experience that we're navigating, why do women need to get in touch with and honor their sacred rage?
Mm, I love this question. Why does it matter, and why do women have to honor their sacred rage? So, I'm going to create an analogy here. I think of a lake, and there's murkiness. And the murkiness, let's say, are the dense, heavy emotions that are left to are not dealt with. And if there's so much of this murkiness, then we cannot see what's underneath it. So that's saying that we have all the answers that we need. All that we need is within. But then if there's stuff like piles of ickiness and shit just all over it, we're not able to see the real, authentic, true versions of ourselves. And so I want to take this further, that it matters because this is experiencing the full spectrum of who we truly are. We're not these docile beings that are just obedient and just like, I am nice all the time. And if we start to operate that over time, then somehow these emotions will just find a way to just explode out. And that can happen through a trigger within a relationship. And like, the relationships are like our biggest reflections sometimes. And then the shit that you were like shoving under the rug will somehow find a way to erupt and rupture and explode. And it can happen in ways that are not pretty and could be hurtful and can cause trauma to another person. So it matters because we're able to take our power back and be able to express what's truly there in a productive way. And as a result, we're then allowing ourselves to find our true authentic selves. It's like we're able to express that. That's my authenticity. I am angry right now, and I'm going to find a way to express that. And it can just be like, so I'll just give an example of what a sacred rage practice can look like. And it can look different for everybody, but um, let's just give an example of how it can look like. I have a sacred rage playlist, and I'm happy to share that. And I'll put on music that will elicit the emotions that I'm wanting to bring out. And I will really tap into my body, and it won't be like from my head. It's literally just like feeling what's there, and I will move and express in a way that feels good. And sometimes that looks like screaming, that means, or shaking, or like sticking my tongue out. I'm thinking Kali vibes, like I'm like punching a pillow, or this like actual practice and where I'm like hacking a pillow that's in front of me. And I'll just like also really tap into my primal nature. And I think this is also rewilding ourselves because, again, we were taught as women to have more of this palatable version of ourselves where we're nice and we're just like, yeah, people pleasing and being the way we should be and not really allowing the full expression. So, this is you giving yourself permission to express the full spectrum of who you really are. And from that space, I find what's on the other side is clarity. What's on the other side is lightness. What's on the other side is happiness, joy, and me coming back to the version of myself who I want to be, or like, the happy. Yeah, I'm not always happy, but I allow myself to experience the full range of emotions so that I can come back to that happiness. And I feel like other people have commented like, "Oh, you look like you're happy all the time." And I'm like, "No, that's not true. It's not true." And if I feel the emotion of sadness and anger, I will go there. I will literally like be in a pool of tears on a yoga mat and just like, "Ah," like ugly cry, snot and everything, and like allow myself to feel the pleasure of that so that I can come back to the happiness. So, all to say, to wrap it up, it's allowing ourselves to feel the full spectrum of our human emotions and the full range. And then we can also see what's underneath to have that clarity, that lightness, and allow us to really feel our primal power and come to a space of understanding ourselves through these practices. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Yeah, that's what my body wants to do. It's like I've been able to tap into my intuition even more, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
intuition, because if I didn't have that practice, that would still be the murkiness that's there. That was like the big elephant in the room that was left unaddressed. And I'm like trying not to notice it, but it's there. So it's coming back to our true authentic selves.
Thank you for sharing all that. I know that there's going to be so many people who this work is going to be eye-opening for them. It makes me think about the fact that we're currently experiencing a lot of energetic shifts, just like as a collective, as a planet. Pluto just entered Aquarius. So we'll be many months into that by the time people hear this podcast episode. And yet, especially those of us that have been really kind of diligently walking our paths and, the good path, being more tuned into our intuition, really amplifying the divine feminine, we have been really accelerated and moving into these higher frequencies, these other timelines. Like there's just a lot happening energetically. And what I have observed, because I'm very tapped into just like the collective energies, is that this time that we're in, this current space and time that we're in as a collective, as a planet, as a dimension, we are being asked to not only recognize like our spiritual side, like our intuitive, like we know many of us know how to do that. We know how to do that already. But what I have noticed about the rage piece is that it's actually rooted me into my humanness, which is a part of me that I very often want to bypass because it's messy. I identify as an earth angel, meaning that I have divine energies and I'm human, but like it's so much easier for me to be like, oh, I just want to be light and I just want to be free and peaceful and all of these things, and not necessarily feel like the grimy grittiness of being human, which sacred rage I feel like is such an important embodiment of being human, right? And so what I've noticed for me even, and I've been rooting so much into my humanness to my dismay these last few months. And I've been so like, my rage cannot be contained in my body a lot of times. Everything that you're describing, except for you, it sounds like maybe you schedule in time to be rageful. I have just been triggered into my sacred rage and finding myself, trying really hard not to project that onto people in a way that would be harmful, but to like punch pillows, everything that you've been describing, like I need like that physical release. And I think as people are listening to this, I just want you all as the listeners to just be assured in this moment that if that's something that you're experiencing, it's not going to support your process, your experience to continue to suppress that, to try to like push it away because it's not convenient or it's not ladylike or whatever, quote unquote. I hate those kinds of like ways that we speak about ourselves as women, but it's like we have to be able and willing to honor it. I also have been kind of raging with my girlfriends on like the voice messaging apps. Sometimes it's like, I just need to be fucking angry for a second. Can you hold space for that? And luckily I have women in my life who are like, yeah, like let's hear it. So there's just, it's so critical because we're moving into a time and space where we're like, okay, we want the collective experience, the collective energy to be, I don't know, just do we want to be better? We want to be better as a whole. And it doesn't sound super intuitive to say, okay, well, we have to connect with our rage in order to have an experience that's like higher, that feels more expansive, that feels freer. But to your point, it's like if we're not connecting to those quote unquote like lower frequency experiences, which I even hate to say that because it's like, okay, that just means we're human. It's not lower, it's not worse. It's just who we are. It's a part of who we are. And if we're not allowing ourselves to be expressive of that very important part of who we are, then you're right. Like we're not able to feel joy more deeply. We're not able to feel divine love more deeply. We're not able to really go into the depths of what's possible spiritually for us, intuitively for us, if we are suppressing our humanness, the things that make us these dense forms that we agreed to come into, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and also what's coming to me is like when you were talking about how you identify as an earth angel, and I do too. And I think that's why we have somehow aligned and connected
Yes.
so beautifully. And I can relate to how you mentioned like you just want to be in that frequency and not so much in this human experience with the denser emotions. I have wanted to do that in the past. I have actually done that in the past, but then that's bypassing our human experience that we are in this body.
Mhm.
And there's this talk about feminine rising, and it's like we just want to be uplifted and go up there towards the heavens, but yet there's also this concept that in order to ascend, we have to descend. And
Right.
so it's like coming back into the body and dealing with what's there as opposed to not just like, oh, you're over here and it's actually not going away. It's just like
Mhm.
collecting until, like I said, it gets to a point where it's gonna rear its ugly head until you're like, okay, fine, I will deal with it. But at that point, a lot of shit has piled up already. So we might as
Mhm.
well have like what I like to call energetic or emotional maintenance, where I drop in every so often. It would be great to do it once a week, but for me, sometimes it happens just once a month where I'm like gonna carve out time
Let
and
me guess which part of the month that is.
okay, yeah.
Like I'm always rageful around the time of my cycle. So I'm like that's where my rage usually starts.
So it's on my luteal phase because in the
Hmm.
luteal phase, like the few days, or I would even say the week before you start to bleed, is when you experience your shadows. You experience like also the heaviness and density of your body. But I find that this is where your doubts, your insecurities, your fears, your not enoughness start to come about.
Hmm.
That's a great time to just dive in and just like be with it. And it's like,
I wish it was a choice sometimes though. Like for me, I'm like, this is so inconvenient. I don't want to be like crying about what happened in ninth grade. You know what I mean? Like,
well, this is what I say too. It's like, can you find the pleasure in it? Because it's actually really fun for me nowadays to just be in the couple of days of like messy hair that's unwashed, and I'm just gonna wear like whatever clothes and just be in the darkness
mm,
and sit with what comes up. But again, it also is like it has happened over time that I now can say that I know how to hold myself and self-soothe along the way. So for those of you who are tuning in and are like, well, I don't know about that because like I don't know if I can, what if I go so deep that I can't get out or whatnot, then this is the time where you can ask for support. And yeah, it's like
and
again,
you offer that support. Like you have
ooh,
spaces and containers and yeah.
and because it's been so instrumental for me to receive that support, and it's got me to where I am right now, still a work in progress, but still at this point I can say that I know how to self-soothe. I can have these practices on my own, and it's because I was in containers and
Mhm.
guided by mentors who showed me the way. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, cool. I can do it myself, and I feel comfortable to hold myself in that now. So yeah.
It's some of my favorite work with clients actually is to navigate shadow work, like to really navigate like, okay, what are you the most angry about? What brings about the most grief? Like where are you the most disappointed in your experience, right? Like there's this like a sacredness of being invited into somebody's like deepest, darkest shadows. And it makes me actually kind of emotional because it's just not common in our world. Like we don't generally allow ourselves to be comfortable in the shadows, whether it's our own shadows, whether it's someone else's shadows. Our world, we are conditioned to eject from that space or to change a subject or to make someone feel better, to fix it, whatever. And when I think about the need for us in terms of like if we are really calling in an experience in our world that is more nourishing, more generative, more free, like freer than what we're experiencing, then we have to be able and willing to not only call our own shadows forward, but to allow space for others to do the same. And it's imperative. It's so important.
Yeah, and we all have it. It's like nowadays it's so easy to be like, oh, look at her. She just lives this perfect life because everybody's just putting out their highlight reel on social media. But then, what was really interesting when I started holding space for other people and in also just being reflected in like a client and they're like sharing something that I went through and then another person had a similar situation but different life and I'm like, wow, this is just part of the human experience. And
Mhm.
it's so easy to just shove it back because
Yeah.
we're ashamed of it. But actually, we're all going through something along those lines in varying degrees. So, as a space holder for women, and I've held space for hundreds of women at this point, I can say that we all have our shadows.
We all have our shit.
All have our shit.
We all have our shit. And also like it's like reckoning with our shit. It's part of the new earth frequency. Like in order for us to get into the life that we crave and desire for ourselves, we have to be able and willing to descend. So,
Yeah, and also what I'm also sensing is like what's coming to me right now is like this alchemical process
mhm,
because the shadow always contains a gift. But we need
mhm,
to have that to go in and to meet it. Like I actually had a conversation with a shadow that came up a few months ago, and I sat with it and I was like, "What can I do for you?" And it said that it wanted to be heard, seen, and understood.
mhm.
So I said, "Okay, and let's do that." And so I really felt into what was there. And of course, no surprise, it had something to do with what happened when I was growing up as a child.
Mhm.
So I had to do inner child healing. And then I had to cry it out. I can sometimes just hug myself
Mhm.
and do these little sways, right? And then on the other side, I was like, okay, inner child. I had a nickname back then. Her name is Dreenie.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, what does Dreenie want to do? And I wanted to jump on a trampoline. So I was like, okay, let's go do that. So it's actually a beautiful journey of intimacy, self intimacy. And from that, you really get to know yourself. And from that,
Mhm.
you can then self soothe. You then can hold yourself through whatever life throws at you. So I feel like it's such a beautiful skill or practice to have because you know that you can just handle whatever comes your way.
It's so interesting that you described like the trampoline even because the when I have also communicated with my shadows and very often, not always, but often it is a version of me from this incarnation, my childhood, whatever. Oftentimes all they want to do after I've spent time seeing them and really holding space and allowing like comforting them, right? They always want to play.
I always want to
They
play.
always want to play afterward. They just want to be free.
Exactly. And Dreenie's epitome of freedom was jumping on a trampoline. That's what brought
Yeah.
her joy. But
Well,
it was
she's an earth angel. She's like catching air, right?
yes.
Yeah.
It was also receiving the love that she didn't have, or well, I mean, she was loved. It's just that there was a certain way of receiving love that she was craving for that she didn't really get. And for her, it's words of affirmation. And so I have to like I'll sometimes look at a photo of her or envision her with my eyes closed and just tell her how amazing she is and how beautiful her artwork is and how she's so smart because I had an older brother who would call me Dinky Dreenie. And
Mm.
like I had all this wounding about, oh, am I not smart? Am I not worthy? Am I stupid? And it was like having to recode all of that. And I'll still have conversations with her from time to time. And yeah, it's so beautiful and so healing.
Ah, Sandrine, you are such a gift. And thank you, Drini, for coming forward
I know
also.
she came through.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we could talk forever, but alas, I will ask this final question, which is something that I ask everyone. What is your bumper sticker, Sandrine? What is the one piece of wisdom that you would put all over the world if you could?
I love this question, and I did hint on it and share some things that are aligned with it throughout our interview. And it's to trust yourself. You have all that you need within you, and you need to have that time to really sit in, tune in, and develop that relationship so that you could trust yourself and use your body as this inner compass to understand what feels good and let that be what leads you and guides you into this most expansive, beautiful, abundant life that you're desiring to live.
Trust yourself. I feel like there's I think we had someone a few episodes ago say the same thing. Like there's so much self-trust that is required in order for us to embody the experience that we are craving in this incarnation. So trust yourself, people. You heard it here again.
We're wanting to get answers from everybody and everything outside of ourselves, but then remember that it's in you and you just have to like again, I speak in terms of analogy sometimes, like our body is an instrument, it's a beautiful vessel, and in order for it to play and dance and like do the things that it can do with all the superpowers, we have to hone it. We have to hone its
Mhm.
abilities. And like I said, that's different for everybody. For me, it's my yoga, meditation, breath work, dance, and embodiment practices, whatever that is in that day. And what's that for you? Do that so that the answers start to submerge. The murkiness can subside, and then the clarity is there. And then in
Mhm.
that space, you are guided.
I feel it's going to be so different for different people too. I see somebody walking in the woods like barefoot. I see somebody in a rage room, like one of those rooms where you like where you can like break stuff, like literally. I've wanted to do that. But like yeah, there I feel like it's going to
There
be
are these
different.
rooms where you could just
Yeah.
wear a hazmat suit and then break
Yeah.
plates and like, you know,
Yeah.
hammer something and just let it
Yeah.
out.
Like
And
let it all out. I mean, it's going to look different for everybody. And yeah, thank you, Xandrine, for that because I feel like experiment, find out what that is for yourself. Like, what is it?
for another person, it could be a rave. For another person, it could be an orgy, for all you know. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
no
whatever
judges.
floats,
Like, I mean,
whatever
it's
floats,
just, what was that?
whatever floats your boat.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you, Xandrine. I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Tell the people how we can find you, and this will also be in the show notes.
Yes. So I am on Instagram at Xandrine Ayla and my website, xandrine.com. So I'd love to connect there. And thank you, Leilani, for having me. This is such a beautiful chat. As always, we always have like such insightful chats that can keep going and
I
going.
know we could go all day, but I also want to say really quickly, like you're on Threads because
Yes.
that's how we met.
What?
Our divine orchestration, synchronicity of meeting one another, where you were like, "Who wants to be on my podcast?" And I was like, "I'll be on your podcast." And then we made it happen like 2 days later or something. Like I guess the reason why this story is coming up, other than the fact that like I love you for finding how, you know what I mean? Like for putting that out and finding our energies together. But also like for those of you out there that are seeking community, like it starts with like putting it out there. Just put it out there. Cause like if you hadn't put it out there, we wouldn't even be talking. And like now I feel like you're a sister now. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that was also a growth edge for me to just put a post out there and say, "Hey, I have this podcast and I'm looking for people to talk about these kinds of topics. Who's wanting to be on it?" And I had no expectations whatsoever, and like
It
so
blew up.
blew up, and I just connected with a few, and you were one of them. But literally, that whole process was my intuition, me trusting myself, even if it was scary, even if it was like, oh, I don't know if anybody's going to reply. Who cares? It's like you're just following that. And if I didn't follow that, then we wouldn't be here having this amazing conversation. And who knows how much more we're going to be collaborating in the future. Like you're
Oh, so much.
near and dear to me and such a beautiful reflection as a sister because we have similar paths. So
Mhm.
always love connecting.
I'm so grateful for you. And I can't wait to have you back.
Yes, I would love that. Yay.
Thank you so much for being here, Xandrine. We'll talk to you soon.
Good. I love you.
I love you. Y'all, thank you so much for being here for this conversation with my dear friend, Xandrine Ayla. I have so much that's still kind of like simmering in my energy field with this conversation. I love the way that Xandrine makes it so simple to talk about an emotion or an experience that's as complex as sacred feminine rage. I really, really love the way that she is able to help us understand our human side more deeply by allowing this rage to kind of move through us, through our bodies. Her work is so important, and I'm so, so grateful that she could take the time to help us understand this really important concept and to share her journey with us, her healing journey. It's just such a gift. If you want to connect with Xandrine, you can do so by going to the show notes. You can find all of her information there. If you'd like to connect with me or work with me one-on-one or attend a workshop or just connect, you can find me on all the socials at Shaman Leilani. You can find all of my information in the show notes as well. But for now, be still, my friends, and live into your impact. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'll talk with you soon.